Hello everybody and welcome back. Thank you very much for joining me. Tonight I have the pleasure of bringing you a report that I took quite a long time ago now. And things have changed in the UK. The witnesses are much happier to come forward and speak about their experience. And due to COVID, we've had to change to online interviews, which in some cases has made it easier for them. So as I'm in the northwest and this case came in the northeast, I put it out to one of our BBR investigators, Carl Lineman, and he went up and met with a witness and he took her account and he met her in the area, and they both went to the area where we think the incident happened, and then you'll hear an interview between me and Karen. So a young girl of 6 sees a terrifying monkey man, and will be an area visit and a witness interview. Now, as I say, a number of years ago now, I took a report that happened in the 1970s from a lady in the northeast of England in the Stanley, Consett area. Karen was around 6 or 7 years old when she had something happen that would stay with her throughout her life. And as I say, Karen was interviewed by one of our investigators, Carl Lineman, and he went up to see her on, let me just check, December. And the incident happened in 1974. So this is the report that Carl Lineman put together for me. On a warm summer's day in 74, between the time of 12 noon and 4 p.m, in the area called Tanfield Lea, not too far from the town of Stanley, County Durham. The witness, Karen Horton, who was aged between the age of 5 and 7 years old at the time, witnessed what she has come to term as a monkey man. He was perched up in a tree under which she was playing, and she was out with some older girls at the time. Karen remembers playing in an open area inside the wooded area of Tanfield Lea, and for some reason she looked up into the tree to see what has become to her a very vivid memory of what she termed an ape man or a monkey man, perched high up in the tree, holding what she thought could be a knife or some other object in one of its hands. In panic, Karen pointed up the tree to show her 2 friends, but they were unable to see anything up there. And they told her this, and this scared Karen as she ran from the woods in a panic. She was crying and she was followed by her friends. Now, the 2 older girls insisted that there was no one up in the tree branches, which only made things worse for Karen, who had hoped that the 2 girls would say it was just a local boy playing a prank on them and they could explain it away, but they did not. She said, I could see him just as clearly as he could see me. He wasn't like a Bigfoot or what I'd imagine they would look like, and he wasn't like a normal human man either. I know for sure I definitely saw him that day, and it frightened me to think that the girls I was with couldn't see him and that there's no explanation of who or what he was. Karen describes the ape man, monkey man, as being about man-sized and around young adult age. He was naked with long bushy dark hair covering his body. Karen supplied a picture of what she could find to be the closest to resembling the ape man, monkey man that she'd seen on that day. Now, on December the 16th, 2020, Carl phoned Karen. He said, I was talking to Karen in the afternoon of December the 16th and we discussed her sighting from 1974 in a bit more detail. And I asked her if she could remember the actual area, as Stanley covers a large area. And she told me that the area was called Tanfield Lea, and she gave details that the wooded area was right next to a road with some shops across the road from the wooded area. He said, I attempted to find the exact location of the ape man, monkey man sighting using Google Maps, and I was able to find the wooded area close to a road and near a number of local shops. This wooded area is called Tanfield Lea Park, and the Lea is spelled L-E-A, which tells me that there's a ley line somewhere in the area. Carl said, it's a small wooded park, which is a small open area at its rear. This could be the area where Karen had her 1974 sighting. Karen went on to describe the monkey man in detail from what she could remember from that day. She described it as being male, young adult in age, adult in size, and perched up in a tree. It had long, bushy, dark hair covering its body, and it looked similar to the image provided by Karen, but not quite the same. Karen did mention that she's had trouble remembering the face and detail of the creature seen. Karen did mention that she was an artist, and she'd been attempting to paint the creature that she'd seen that day in the hope of jogging her memory and providing some more details. I asked Karen if she could remember what time of day and what time of year and the sighting had taken place, and she told me it was probably sometime in summer as it was warm, and it was between lunchtime and 4 in the afternoon. I asked about the item in his hand, said Carl, and she described it as looking like a knife. She said that it could have been a stone shaped like a knife that was in his hand. In a follow-up message to Karen, she let me know that she was in touch with one of the girls that was with her that day, and Karen asked her about the incident from that day, but unfortunately she had no memory of the event. Tanfield Lea Park is a quite small wooded area. You can see it easily on Google Maps. There are 2 pathways, one of which goes round the inside edge to the back of the park, leading to the residential area. Now, the path passes a small open area, which I believe must have been when a sighting happened in 74. The other path leads from one side of the wood to the other in a straight line. Now, the park, while I was there, had a number of dog walkers using it, and it must be a popular place. Carl said he took a number of photographs of the wooded area, so people reading about this sighting would have some context of the area that it happened in. There were a lot of broken and felled trees in the wood and quite a few squirrels running around. It takes about 10 minutes to walk slowly round to the rear car park. He said he sent Karen a copy of this report, asking if she was happy with it or if there were any mistakes or omissions, and she felt that she should add, but Karen responded that the report of her experience was good and the pictures evoked an emotional response in her. She particularly found the clearing photograph very interesting. Karen has also attached a photograph of her painting of the Monkey Man. Karen stated that the painting was done about a year ago and that it's not finished yet, and when she's ready she'll release it, and everybody can see it. And I'd like to thank Carl Lineman for providing me with that report and for going out and meeting Karen and putting her at ease. Without him, we probably wouldn't have been able to record an interview. But Karen's come a long way. She's never shied away from explaining what happened to her that day. It's her truth and she stands behind it firmly, and I think you'll understand that when you listen to the interview coming up. So now I'm going to be speaking to Karen myself about what happened that day, all those years ago in the 70s. So if you don't mind, Karen, could you just tell us a little bit about what happened?
Yeah, well, basically I was in the woods that day with some older girls, and I seen this, what I could only describe as an ape man or a monkey man.
Mm-hmm.
And he was crouched in a tree, but I've thought a lot about how I got to that point.
Yeah.
And I don't think that the girls that I was with were actually there when I seen them.
Right.
I think that I'd kind of walked ahead.
Yeah.
As I remember it, there was like a main area where some children did play, and there was a swing, like a rope swing, and I think I'd kind of moved away from that area a little bit, although I could still kind of hear them in the background, and I wasn't too far away, but I think I was away from that part when it actually took place.
I mean, you were only 6, weren't you, at the time? You're only little. I mean, we have to tell people
yes,
that.
I think I was somewhere between 5 and 7. I probably was about 6. It's difficult for us to put an age on it, really. I think the main kind of thing that I have that helps us to work out. how old I was knowing that the girls that I was with were older girls, and
Yeah.
I can have my own memories of when I was young and what a bigger girl was, how old they were.
Yeah, I know.
And I think they must have been about 11 years old.
Mm.
And I've recently found out, because I recently caught up with one of them after many years.
Oh.
But there's a 3-year difference, so a 3 or a 4 year difference.
Yes.
So I think I must have been. I was about 6 or 7.
Yeah.
When it happened, but the main memory that I have, it's like I have memories of what happened that are fact, that I know are fact. I know that that actually happened. But there's other things that are just so. It's kind of like out of focus. It's a bit muddy. It's almost veiled.
Yeah.
Like I have distinct memories of certain features that he had, but at the same time, I can't see him. I can't see him in my mind, which is really frustrating.
Yeah, it must be.
It is just like a hazy image. But I mean, the main part of it that I definitely remember is that I'd looked up into this tree, and there he was in the tree, and the only way I could describe him was that he was neither a man or an ape or monkey.
Yeah.
Yet he was both of those things.
Yeah.
And there was nothing that I could use in me. You know, when you see something unusual in your mind, it just. Things flash through your mind. You're trying to find a point of reference to identify what you're seeing. And it's strange because even though I can't see his full features, I cannot have the memory of that, which is the biggest part of what happened.
Yeah.
I can remember tiny thoughts. Like, I remember going through that process, and I actually can even remember thinking two small thoughts as I was rationalising it. And one of them was, Tarzan, which sounds a bit funny, but it was like, that was the only kind of thing I'd ever seen that was up in a tree, crouched.
Yeah, that would make sense,
especially holding something in its hand, because I believe he had some kind of, maybe it was a knife, or maybe it was just a stone or something, but to me, I thought it was a knife anyway. So that was one of the rationalising thoughts that, like, I was thinking, well, that's something really close to what I've seen, but yet at the same time, it was the fact that he was naked and he was in the tree and he was crouched, and I'd seen that kind of thing so many times on TV, but it wasn't that. That was just something that I could relate it to, something being in a tree in that kind of manner. You know?
Yeah, I do.
And also I remember thinking, young man, I just remember thinking that as well.
He was only young.
But I knew that he didn't look like any man I'd seen.
Yeah.
He didn't look like any physical type of man or any ethnic origin type of man that I'd seen.
Yeah, I know.
He just didn't fit into either category. It was something different. It was something unique that I was seeing. And what I remember about these features was that he was man-sized. What I would have thought of as just man-sized, with long, dark, like bushy hair. I know there was dark body hair and a dark body. And I know that he was naked, although I can't remember seeing any kind of private parts or anything like that.
I get you.
But I remember the crouched position, so I don't know if that kind of covered certain areas. I remember really intense eyes. I remember dark eyes.
Right.
And holding something like the which I think was a dagger or something that represented that or looked like it.
Yeah.
But the main thing, the thing that really stood out was that what I was seeing was an ape man, and I'd never seen it before. It was something totally different.
Yes.
I remember feeling terror
and
running away. But at that point, the girls were there. At the point where I ran away, they were there, and I think
he caught up to you.
I'd went from seeing him in the tree to saying to them, look, this is what I'm seeing, look, can you see it too?
Yeah.
And they couldn't.
Right.
And that really scared us, because I wanted them to be able to say, oh yeah, we can see that. And what that is, and then they could put a name to it.
Yeah, I get that.
And explain, and when they couldn't, that really terrified us.
Yeah.
But when I've thought about it more, I do wonder whether this actually happened for a longer time than what I maybe first thought it had.
I get you, yeah.
Because, I had that moment of terror, but I ran, but I distinctly remember feeling fascination, looking and being fascinated. Right. So for me to feel fascinated yet to feel terror at the same time, it kind of makes me think there was a time where I was looking and feeling fascination first.
I get you, yeah. And then the terror.
And then it kind of turning into because and to be able to remember some kind of thought process as well. And I just think, maybe this lasted longer than what I kind of remember it lasting.
Yeah.
I mean, I only remember the main part,
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, that, yeah.
So, but it is really frustrating for me that the memory is kind of veiled.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating that certain things really are so clear.
Yeah, I get you.
Like little thoughts and what I knew I was seeing was an ape man. I knew that's what it was. Yet I can't kind of picture him in my mind. It's just like a blur.
It was the same for me, Karen. I couldn't picture his face for a really, really long time. I remember, when I tell my experience, it's like I'm remembering the whole of it, but I'm not. I knew I wasn't in school because I wouldn't have been in that place with my uniform on with her. But I don't remember making the decision not to go in. I remember him, making eye contact with him and him looking at me. And Paul Sinclair asked me if I remembered the trees moving. And I was shocked because I said, I don't know, I can't remember. I can't remember that. I remember his face, I remember pushing her to the floor, and the next thing I'd come to about 2 miles away. I don't remember the run or anything. And I've tried so hard. But to remember, meditation, anything. So I'll even do hypnosis just to take me back to that day and see if I could fill in those gaps and get a real good look at him as well. Because you want to do the same, don't you?
I really do, yeah. I really want to do that. And that eye contact that you just spoke of, I remember that.
Yeah.
I can kind of see the eyes, or I remember that intense eye contact. And when I ran away, I mean, I was gone. I was miles ahead of these girls who were like chasing after us. I wanted to be out of those woods and on the roadside again.
Safe, yeah.
And I wasn't stopping till I got there.
Oh, you were so young as well. That would have been absolutely terrifying.
I really do. I remember the terror.
Yeah.
But the whole event, I just had to, because I remembered it over the years, but I never thought about it much because it was put in a part of me memory where it was, I can literally visualize it as being labelled as impossible, but definitely happened. So it's like this
that makes perfect sense to me. Yeah, you file it away. It's almost...
It is. There's no point thinking about it. There's nothing you can do with it.
Yeah.
How can you make sense of something that definitely happened, but definitely couldn't have happened because it's impossible? So it was right in the back of my mind, and I knew it was always there. And sometimes I mean, it would be like years would pass and then it might come to the surface a bit and I'd think, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh, but it's in that impossible but happened file. And it was strange.
Don't you get a monkey? Sorry, but don't you get a monkey every year for your birthday? Wasn't there something like that you did?
Yes, Tony my husband buys us monkeys all of the time, but this is another strange thing that I wanted to mention was that, well, first of all, let us say that when I brought it back to my mind after many years, I probably hadn't thought about it for about 10 years.
Right.
And me and my husband, we love watching anything to do with the unexplained.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been interested in that kind of thing, and so is he. And I've always loved Bigfoot stuff.
Right.
Anything to do with Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
And we were watching stuff on TV one day. And we're just in bed watching the TV. And I said, you know, obviously I've never seen a Bigfoot, Tony, but I said, you know what? I did once see a monkey man, though, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I started telling him the story, you know.
Yeah.
And that's when I thought, I haven't thought about that for ages, for so long, and it just popped back in from me memory from that place that it was shelved.
Yeah.
And that was when, and it got us really curious, really, really curious, and I just Googled it. I thought, well, maybe there was some. I thought, I don't understand it, but I'm going to think a bit more about this, and I thought maybe there was some phenomena where people see things that are really there but aren't really there.
Yeah, I had the same thing, same thought.
And that's when I came across your site on Facebook, and I was amazed, and it put a whole new slant on things. But I think about it all the time now because I'm trying to get more information from my own memories, which isn't working out too well.
Yeah, it's hard.
But what I have thought of, though, is, the fact that all my life, from being very little, I've loved monkeys.
Right.
I've absolutely loved them. When I was a child, all I wanted a dog, and I wanted a monkey, and a motorbike. Them three things, and I just really wanted a monkey. From being really small and
that's unusual.
From being really young.
That's unusual.
And it is.
Yeah.
I really did have a thing for them, and my cousin had one of those, the quite lifelike ones, the toy ones.
Oh, Charlie the chimp. Did it have?
That kind of thing. And for some reason, my mum didn't buy me one, but I used to get to have hers for the weekend, and I've always had toys with that were. Yeah, I've always had like monkey toys and that, and me and Tony have been together about 9 years now, and he knew that I love monkeys, and every year I've got a big collection of them now, and that was before I even remembered again about what had happened, you know.
Yeah, it's quite normal that.
I just think
I don't know if your brain fuzzies it out in a way, kind of. I don't know how the words I need to use. In protection, it's almost like you don't remember it because it's too scary, too terrifying. But when you get to our age, it's you've got you're a lot stronger of a woman, aren't you, when you're our age? And then the memories are easier, and it's easier to try and look at the face in your head.
Yeah, yes, it is. But I mean, I do definitely remember fascination. That's one of the things that's a definite remember. Memory of when the incident happened, and it just kind of links up with the lifetime fascination with monkeys, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, you've got an interest in it. I hear it from both sides. Or even people who are into like dogmen, and they'll say, "I've always been fascinated by wolves. I've loved them," or as a child, I always wanted a wolf as a pet. And the same from because not all the reports that come in are Bigfoot. That's rare that someone in the UK will use the word Bigfoot. Most of them are monkey man, man-ape, man-monkey, gorilla, I get that a lot, chimp. And they always say it's like a man and an ape together but it's just, I can't explain it. It's impossible. I don't know if it was a caveman, if it was, because I don't.
Yeah.
I really don't. I did what you did and just learned whatever I could, in the hopes that it'd fill a clue in, kind of thing. But I've never been able to find anything online that looks exactly like him. And I don't have your art skills. I can't get his head out of my head onto paper. But you've had a go at that. You've tried painting him, haven't you?
I have. I've got like a half-finished painting of him, but it was very difficult to do, and I kind of give up halfway through, and I need to revisit it and try again. But it did help us.
Right.
What I wanted to do wasn't just to kind of try and get a picture of what he looked like, but I wanted it to. Well, I did, but I wanted it to kind of. I was hoping it would like
trigger a memory.
Trigger memories, and it was starting to do that because it helped us to get like a perspective on where I was and in relation to the other girls and kind of how things had happened. So it was starting to do that, and I need to revisit that again.
When the time's right, when it feels right.
It's just getting a bit of quality time to kind of just
get in
do
that
it
space
in the right way. And hopefully.
I think you will eventually. I think you'll be able to get him out, and like you say, if it's processing, if it's like therapy, you just go back to it when, like you say, when you've got the right headspace and you've got quiet around you, and you can sit and really have a good think about it. Yeah, it'll happen. I do it with writing, and I can't write every day. It's impossible, innit? I've got kids, grandkids, parents,
I need some quality time to do things like that. But it's funny how I've had a lot of thoughts about different things to do with me. And I think that I'm starting to think that they could well all link back to that experience.
Yeah, possibly.
Things like, I've always, from being a child, had a fear of things that don't exist.
Right.
I mean, where would that come from?
I don't know.
I was terrified as a child of and I don't know if that's normal for every child, but like horror films and stuff, I couldn't watch anything like that, or I was scared of things like werewolves because I knew they weren't supposed to exist. I knew that adults would say, "Oh, these things
are not real.
Don't worry, don't exist." But was that because I'd seen something that I knew didn't exist, and yet I was seeing it?
Possibly. It could have started earlier than that, and you don't have a memory of it.
And I had a lot of nightmares when I was a child, and I had a really great childhood. I had lovely parents.
Yeah.
There was nothing to be scared of. I felt so secure, yet I was scared of the unknown and the kind of...
I get what you're saying.
That kind of thing, and it just makes me think that maybe it could all stem back to that.
Possibly could. I mean, I never put events together. Lots of the others don't put events together, and then you suddenly think maybe it's all connected. I would imagine you've had other strange experiences in your life, And
I know as well as an adult, we all have difficult experiences at times, and some traumatic experiences through our lives and that. And when I've had things like that happen to me, I know that it's happened, and I know what's happened, but the details are always a blur, and I've always felt like it is my mind kind of protecting us from what's happened.
Yeah, that's kind of that strength. In a way, that's your strength of character that you can do that.
But I think, maybe that's why things are a blur regarding this incident, because that was the first time I ever protected myself in that way.
Very possibly, yeah.
I still knew it happened, but I wasn't going to be kind of haunted by the actual image of his face.
It's a strange relationship, isn't it, Karen? Because it is a relationship, and there's no other. It's with you for your lifetime. So it's like one of the oldest. For me, it's one of the oldest things that I can remember, really. And it's forever, and it's I don't know. I'm scared of knowing more, but I really want to know more. And there's no way of explaining that.
I know, it is. It's definitely it's conflicting feelings, isn't it, about what's happened. I know when I seen the photographs that he took of the area, as soon as I seen that area, it sent a shiver down my spine. It definitely struck a chord with us. Seeing that area, I knew there was something about it. You know, it actually, it's like I could almost feel some of the feelings from then.
The name of the place is Tanfield Lea, isn't it? Spelled Lea.
Yes,
well,
Tanfield Lea.
That means there's a ley line. If the area is spelled Ley or Lea, there's a ley line in that area. And there is one that runs from the top of me at Winter Hill all the way to Seaton Sluice, which I think is north of you still, Karen. But
Seaton Sluice is very close to where I live now.
Right. Well,
which isn't close to Stanley, by the way.
No, I know, but if the name's Tanfield Lea, that means that there's an energy line in that area.
Oh, that's really interesting.
And there are other reports in not too far from you. There's the church on the Coast to Coast Road, where that chap in I think it's 2006 saw a really tall, dark shadow watching him from the side of the church. Then you've got 98 Beamish. You've got 5 boys in a car. And they see what they describe as a huge, quick, dark shape, throws a rock at the car, runs into one wood, out of it and into another. Then you've got...
I've never heard that story.
Yeah, these have all come in since you made your report. Then the next one is 2019. We've got a woman, I can send them to you, Karen. We've got a woman, she's walking... I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head right now, but it's kind of like, you remember where the old railway lines are and they turn them into walking paths, so you got like 2 embankments and it's just...
Like, is it Causey Arch?
Yeah, like that. So she's been walking down there and there's been a chap further behind her, and she said as she's walking she saw what she described as 2 hairy legs, as if something was hiding behind the hedge watching her. And the really strange thing about it is, as the guy was getting closer and closer to her, she started to get a little bit nervous, and that, whatever those 2 legs were, made a noise. And the guy kind of quickly hurried up and went past her and went on. And she said, I don't know if it was trying to protect me, because he knew that something was about to happen with the guy, or it was just 2 total different things going on at the same time. Yeah, she described 2 legs. And then we've got, just a little bit further out, about 2 miles away, I've got 2 reports from 2 separate geocachers who are both out looking for the same geocache at separate occasions. And they described being shadowed through the wood, almost spooked out of there by something that kept pace with them. Which is, I mean, we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 9. If we did a 10-mile radius, there's about 9 reports. Oh, and there was another one. Where's the hippie one? Let me go find it. Right, a chap got in touch with me and said, there's loads of people in Beamish have heard about the hairy thing. They call it the hairy mad hippie.
Right.
So, you know...
Yeah, I think I've heard something about that.
Yeah, which is really strange.
I've never heard of any of that when I was...
when you were little,
a child, though.
No, these have all come in since I put your report out. All of these have come in off the back of that. So people have heard that, got in touch with me and said, I'm from Beamish, I'm from Stanley, I'm from Consett. And this is what happened to me. So if you hadn't come forward... Yeah, if you hadn't come forward, we wouldn't have any of these reports. You know?
Oh, that's amazing.
It is. It's exactly that. So you've got all these other people who've listened to it and gone, hang on a minute, that might explain what happened to me in 2006, 1998, 2019. And it just, when you look at your area, it's not just that there's a massive corridor and it runs right up through Northumberland up to Scotland, and that's part of it. Where you are is
Yeah.
part of that corridor. So I'm not saying that what you saw was a Bigfoot. What you saw was a monkey man. But you're not the only person who saw it in that area. I would describe what I saw as a man-ape. It was a man and an ape, but it wasn't either.
Yeah.
And it was both at the same time. And
Yeah.
there's another case, Karen, and I think it's only in the 80s, 10, 15 years after yours. A little bit further away, it's in Springwell.
Right.
And it's a young boy in his bedroom, looks out the bedroom window, and he describes a gorilla that is watching him from the garden. Well, when you look at the house, the garden's on the last house on the estate, and the rest of it's just open green land, yeah. So this thing's behind a tree looking at him from his bedroom window, and he said it looked like a gorilla. You know, and that's not that far from you. So something's being seen in that area and being reported by people.
Yeah, it sounds like there's something going on, definitely.
Mm. Did you ever speak to any of the girls? Did you ever catch up with them and mention?
Well, for some reason I thought those girls didn't live in the area anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I was on I had a look on a site. It was something like Stanley past and present, and
Right.
basically I seen a photo with one of these girls, or I think both of them were on actually because they were sisters. And I realised that somebody on the thread was one of these girls. And I asked to message her, and I asked her, you know, are you who I think you are?
Yeah.
And realised that she was, and I couldn't believe it because I just didn't think I would ever be able to speak to either of these girls ever in my life.
Again, yeah.
So that was like a massive thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, she couldn't remember the incident. But she did say she could remember being in the woods with us. She knew that we went places together and that she was older than me, her and her sister. And she did remember being in those woods with us. And she said she would ask her sister if she had any memories. And she hasn't came back to us. And I would really like to ask her, have you spoke to her?
Yeah,
but
I know what you mean.
It was really hard for us anyway because, you know, you suddenly speak to someone that you haven't spoke to since you were a child. Yeah. And that's what you ask them.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, exactly.
Can you remember this incident? And it must just sound, you know, bizarre to somebody having been asked that, you know, so...
I know what that feels like.
Maybe I'll pluck the courage up to ask if she spoke to her sister at some point, or maybe she will get back to us.
Yeah, I did the same. Went on Friends Reunited when it first came out, and I found our old school. So I went on a site and I put, does anybody remember the Gorilla Man from Beulah Hill? And the girl I was with that day popped up and put, I do. And I shut my laptop and I never mentioned it again for 18 months. That made it so real. I can't put that into words to people, but it was like, I don't know, just because it was her, and she was like, yeah, I do, and it was just like, oh, I don't know how to describe the feeling. I was like, no, can't deal with that, and it just didn't do anything about it for like 18 months. I know,
it's
but
because
it is.
Even though you know it's real, when somebody else acknowledges that, it just
it does, doesn't it? I was like
goes
you.
to another level.
I was like you. I was hoping someone would say, "Oh, that wasn't a monkey man. That was blah blah blah," and explain it away, and then I could go, "Oh, thank God for that. Now I know." And last thing I expected.
But how on earth would they explain it away?
I know.
I don't know how anyone would.
No, they wouldn't. No.
But in my case, I thought, well, these are older children than me.
Yeah.
So they know more than me. So, you know, they've got more knowledge than I have.
Yeah.
They would have an explanation.
Yeah. I know.
But you know how you said that girl when she said I do, that made it real for you.
Yeah, it did. Mm.
Yeah. Well, when I read your story.
Yeah.
And when you told me your story, that's what made it real for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I knew it was real, but it was like that really.
There's no
that
going
really
back.
made me.
Yeah, it's that no going back feeling, isn't it? It's like, right, I've got to deal with this now. You know, I can't.
You know, you've got to try and get
Yeah.
some kind of answer.
Yeah, I can't file it away anymore. And my kids are grown. I've got no kids at home. There's just me and him. You know, I'd had my accident. I was stuck on that bed 24/7. It was time for me. It was like, right, I'm just going to find out whatever I can find out. And hopefully, you know, I'd already spoke to some other witnesses by then. I'd started the map by then. But it was like, it was not a priority. It was something I did, you know, every now and again. I'd put it away and shut the cupboard on it and things, and then something had happened and I'd pick it up again. But then it was like, no, I need to know how many other people are out there that have kind of seen it or something like it.
Yeah.
And it's the witnesses like me and you who were young. She's like the M6, not too far from me, that I spoke to a lad 2 months ago. He was 7. He said it looked like a griller. It came across the garden and right up to the window and kind of bared its teeth at him. Just the idea of being 7 and having to process that in your mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and then Charmaine Fraser, she was 8. And it's worse for her. She's in the middle of a massive forest in Scotland with just one farmhouse. She's got to walk all the way down the path to get the paper for the neighbour. And she said the dog reacted, and I looked up and it was about 8 foot tall. It was completely covered in hair, and it was examining something at the end of a tree. And she was 8.
Yeah.
And you're just thinking it's so hard. There's so many of us.
Yeah.
There are so many of us. And I just didn't realise me until one day I thought, I'm going to see how many of us were young, were under 10. You know, and there's quite a few of us. And all of them are looking for answers. So none of them have had to find them. Do you get what I mean? They're all out there looking for answers, and we've kind of came across each other like me and you. There's so many of us, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think for me as well, knowing that you were 15, it's different to the age I was. You're that much more.
Yeah, I get it. You think, well, she was older than me, so she's not been able to rationalise it.
Yeah, you've seen it and you were older than me.
Yeah.
And it's like, even though I know what I've seen, it's like, that feels like a confirmation for me.
Yeah, most definitely.
You know, like proof almost, because you were 15 and it's like, you know what you're seeing when you're 15.
Yeah.
I knew what I was seeing then, but like...
Yeah, you're beyond that. I get what you mean. You're beyond that. They can't put that label on me that it's a child that's just imagining something. That, you know, that they can't do that. I wasn't old enough to be drinking or smoking or taking drugs. So it shouldn't have happened. It should not have happened, but it did. And I can't stop the fact that it did. I can't get over that. So I just have to keep finding other people.
So something else I remembered as well, this memory I had was of being really young and being in a different woods, a few miles away from where I had the sighting.
Right.
But being with an uncle who was older than me. He was like a teenager, and I was just like a child. And I remembered this time of being in the woods with him and his friend, and just being so scared. Like, so terrified just to be in the woods, and asking to hold his hand, and him, like, being really reluctant because he was a teenager and I was a kid, and I was just so scared. And I'd always remembered that, and I'd never linked it up
to the other.
with what happened. But that was probably why. If, you know, after what had happened to me in Tanfield Lea, then...
Makes better sense.
After that, as a child, would have been really scary.
Yeah, you'd have been thinking he was behind every tree or up in every tree. That's the other thing that's scary about yours. He was up above you.
Yeah.
And that's a scary position for anybody.
Because you don't often look up either, do you?
No, not at all. No, you don't. I realised that when I first started looking at woods to see where they could hide. And I hear other people who say they were up in the tree. There's 2 lads in Yorkshire who were building a tree swing. We all done that, rope swings as kids, you know, over at Little Stream and stuff, and he looked up in the tree and it was up above him. similar circumstances right up above him, and they were 9 and 10. You know, 2 mile away, there's 2 other kids, 11 and 12, different time, completely different time, doing the same stream, building a rope swing, and they saw it over the river. It was over the river in like a gorilla stance, watching them. Just, you know.
So scary.
It just is. It's just, but the thought of something up above you as you're walking through there, you have no idea. You know, you just wouldn't know, would you? Ugh.
You wouldn't. It's not really. You wouldn't normally be looking up at the trees, and
no.
especially when you're small. And there's so much to see just around you. You know,
there is. There's a lot. I mean, as a girl, sometimes you get that feeling, don't you, when you're in a place where you don't feel safe. I think girls learn to trust. Yeah, they learn to trust their feelings more. I think quickly, girls, because there's predatory males, isn't there? So you learn from a very early age. Wherever you are, when you're on your own, you're listening, you're looking at, your senses are things. So I think we pick up on things more. And I think when you're 6 or 7, society's not shut you down. In it's, you know, as you get older, as you're 7, 8, 9, it's you've had a nightmare, or you're just daydreaming. You know, or you're just being silly. I think we get shut down like that. But when you're 6, it's acceptable. But you still, do you remember telling your parents, or you just don't remember that?
I don't remember telling them, but after it all came back to us again, and you know, I found out about you and other people saying similar things, I thought, I must speak to my parents about this.
Yeah.
And I just had this presumption that they knew, because I'd always knew it happened to us.
Yeah, I get you.
So they must have always knew. I was sure they must have always knew.
Yeah.
But when I asked them, neither of them remembered, and that really puzzled us, because I thought, well, why wouldn't they? Surely I must have told them. Surely we must have talked about it, but I can't remember specifically ever talking to them about it. But so I don't know if I did and they forgot. It's not the kind of thing you forget, is it?
Well, no. Or you might have just... I've spoken to a few child witnesses where they've just, on the way home, thought, well, no one's going to believe me. I can't, you know, and they just made an excuse for why they're late or why they're upset, or... Because that's easier than saying, because I've just seen an 8-man in the woods.
But I mean, what my mum did say, because I told her the age I thought I was when it happened, and she was like, she said, well, I wouldn't have ever let you out when you were that young.
Right.
Without me being there. And I thought, well, I did. I went everywhere, you know, but
it was a different time back then, wasn't it? I used to walk to school on my own when I was 6. And older girls knocked on to it. Girls, you tag along with older girls, don't you? And they'd knock on, you know.
Yeah, you do. And she couldn't remember those older girls either. But then a few months later, I was at her house and she was showing us some pictures, slides from like when we were little. Yeah. And there they were on the slides.
Right.
I was like, that's those girls. But when she said that, what I thought was, I thought about it, and I thought, you know what? Maybe when I was really young, it wasn't that I didn't go out and about with these older girls, but maybe it was that I didn't go quite as far as that woodland area. Yeah. And I thought about it, and I had a feeling that maybe I just went further with them that day than I was supposed to go.
Yeah, and that's possibly why you've not told her, yeah.
And maybe I didn't actually tell them what had happened, and that could have made us even more fearful. That might have been what made us so fearful, because I couldn't really tell them, because I wasn't really supposed to go that far that day, and I have a feeling that might have been the case.
I recognise that with so many of the other witnesses. They're either out with friends they're not supposed to knock about with, or they have an experience. And I mean, when I think about Paula Paula was in Judy Woods, and she said the next thing she was at the bottom of their street. So that whole 45 minutes had just completely disappeared. You know? Mark Norman's another. When I think of you, I think of Mark Norman. He was in the northeast, but he described what he saw as the Green Man. But when you listen to the description, it's not Green Man like at all. He said it looked like a man in a ghillie suit, and same situation. He's very young and he's with older boys.
Right.
And the older boys didn't see it, and he did, and he was just out of there like a shot. But if you're not supposed to be there, or you're not supposed to be with that person, you don't tell your parents when you go home, because that's more frightening, isn't it? Getting done for.
Yeah. Well, thinking about it, you know, when I think, because I did used to wander a lot, and there was a lot of fields around and ditches and things like that. But where those woods are, you come to the edge of you come to what would have been quite a busy road.
Yeah.
And that was probably the borderline of where I was supposed to play.
Yeah.
To a certain age, you know. That was probably the limit of where I was supposed to go.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
It does make sense, and I think probably that's what my mum's been thinking. But I even plucked up the courage to ask an aunt if she had any memory of us talking about it. I've got an aunt that I used to spend a lot of time with, but she couldn't remember.
It's so
all she
frustrating.
could remember was that was the aunt that I used to get the monkey off. It was my cousin's monkey, the one that I used to bring home.
My sister had that monkey, and she was terrified of it. She was a lot younger than me, 7 years between us. And my dad, who thought it was hysterical, would hang it off the back of her, and she would run around the house screaming. She was terrified of it, absolutely terrified of it. That's why I remember it.
Well, it looked quite real, didn't it?
Yeah.
And thinking about it, that's what I really liked about it.
My sister was terrified of it.
Actually, years later in my 20s, I found one in an old junk shop. And I had it for years. I thought, well, I couldn't get one when I was a child, but I'll have one now.
Right.
And I had it for many years, but it ended up getting really battered and stuff, and I got rid of it in the end.
It's a strange connection, isn't it, Karen?
Yeah, definitely. It really is.
Have you ever had anything like haunted or seen a UFO or anything weird or strange other than that experience, or is it just that experience for you and the one where later when you were a bit nervous?
I've had one experience which was really, really scary. And I was in my 20s. I lived in a flat at the time with my son. And for some reason, I just thought I looked really nice this day and that I should have a photograph of myself.
Right.
Just to remind us that I was looking good.
Yeah.
And I had this really old dressing table with a mirror on it. And I thought, I'll take a picture of myself in the mirror. And so I took a picture of myself in the mirror, and I got it developed, got the photographs back. And when it got to that picture, I was absolutely horrified to see what was on it, because you had the picture of me sitting at the dressing table, and you could see the flash, but it didn't obscure the photograph a lot. It was just a little bit of a white flash around where I was. And then standing behind us at I don't know if it was the left side or the right side, standing behind us, above us, was this woman. Honestly, it was horrifying. I was so scared. It was like somebody from the olden days. Yeah. That's all I could think. This is an old-fashioned woman, and it wasn't a misty image, you know. It was very clear. It was like black and white, if you know what I mean. Yeah. But it was very clear, and it was this woman, and I remember having like a dress that was kind of a low, straight cut dress. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like where it kind of just goes across, but quite low, and having this like hat, this big hat on, and just, you know, you could see the features on the face, but just really dark areas where the eyes were, just really dark eyes, and it was so clear, and I was so scared.
Bloody hell.
It was terrifying.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
It was really scary, and I didn't keep that picture because it just had such a hold on us.
Yeah, exactly.
I had to get rid of it. I was so scared. I'd gotten involved with the local church, and I've got like quite a strong Christian faith. I have since I was in my 20s, and the local church that I was involved with, I rang the minister, and he had to come round and see us. I was in a right state.
I don't blame you.
It was horrible, it really was, and I didn't want to be on my own, but I had to be because it was just me and my son, you know. But he came round and, you know, tried to kind of reassure us and prayed with us and things like that. But it was really scary, and he said, you know, I think the best thing you can do is just to destroy it, because it's you know, it's got a fearful hold on you.
Yeah, exactly. So, it could have been something to do with the dresser. It could have been something to do with the flat.
That's what I thought. Is it to do with the it's either the flat, the dresser, or it's me. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
So, but I did get rid of the dresser after that.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I got rid of the dresser just in case it was that. But
Did it all go quiet then? Did it quieten down once the vicar had been?
Well, there was nothing else happened, you know. There wasn't any other there wasn't I did have a funny dream as well connected with that, I think. I think I'd had a dream before that, some kind of strange dream about something.
Is it hazy and a bit misty?
Yeah. But I did remember, the only thing I could think of connected to that, because I remember him saying to us, is there anything to do with that dressing table or anything, just anything you can connect to it? And I'd had a funny dream about some writing and something being in a drawer or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It was just a hazy dream though. But yes, that's the only other experience I've had that's been a frightening one.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's really positive. Because some of them have it awful, you know, for a really long time. It'll pick up at like when they're 14, and then when they're 21, and then when they're 28. So I was like, they're stuck in this loop of frightening experiences. So it's really nice to hear someone who says, no, actually, you know, I had that event and there were 2 others, but that was it, you know? That's really, really rare.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice.
But I think, I was, for quite a lot of years, I was still frightened of anything that I thought was the unknown or that wasn't supposed to exist.
Yeah.
That's what got us about that incident with the photograph. It was like, oh my God, it's something that's not supposed to exist, and there it is, you know?
Yeah.
And that was what happened next. But I did have quite a few fearful years after that, to be honest, but at some point I managed to break free from that. I'm not scared of anything like that now.
Yeah.
You know, nothing, I'm not fazed by, you know, that kind of thing. And I think the faith that I have helps us with that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it does.
It's not feeling fearful.
Yeah, I think it does, yeah. It's lots of witnesses have a strong faith, you know, and it helps. Yeah, it helps. I think it really does.
It does, because you feel like there's something that can overcome the frightening thing that isn't supposed to exist if it's going to kind of appear to you again in any way, you know. To be 6 and to see something like that, you're an incredibly strong woman because you've come through it, you know, and you've carried on and you've had kids and you've got grandkids and you've got all of that, and it's not taking you down. In fact, I think it's strengthened your character. Yeah, I think it's made us quite curious. I think I've always been like a curious person, you know, and I've always had this interest of the unknown, you know, but I've never connected it to the experience that I had.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Like I say, I do think that experience explains a lot about the personality that I've had and, you know, the fears that I've had throughout my life.
Yeah, it brings things into, you think, that makes sense now. Now I know why I was like that, or why I felt that, or that kind of bit. That's how it's been for me. Because I was the opposite to you, Karen. I did not take to it very well. I spent my 20s and my 30s running from it, and I'd use anything, any distraction just not to think about it. You know, and it went really dark for me for a long time. I mean, it's not now, but back then it did. But now I can look back and think, well, I get it. I understand it. I was clearly just stuck on flight for a really long time. And then obviously now I'm in my 50s. I've had time to sit down and kind of process it and go through the event and think, right, well, you come out of it. You did okay. You know, you're still functioning. I don't really know how to put it into words. Yeah. For a long time, I felt like it happened to me and I had no control of it and I was kind of a victim. And then obviously now, I think that I had no control over that. It happened. I had to deal with it and I did. And that's where I am now.
I think I can imagine it being more scary at the age of 15 because it's...
It shouldn't be anything like that. In the world at that time, I was probably into Madness, the band, probably thinking about lads.
Yeah.
Whether we were going to youth club, that had been the height of conversation. Who was courting who? Nothing. And I had no interest. I wasn't even interested in the Unexplained. My dad was. So, like, he'd have Arthur C. Clarke on and things like that, you know, the Unexplained. But I'd walk in passing or I'd watch it because I was waiting for something else to come on TV. I had no interest in it at all.
Yes,
Yeah, I never, like, UFOs, never had paranormal experiences, just that damn man monkey. To me, he was the man ape. That's how I think of people. Always call him the Bigfoot or Debbie's Bigfoot. But to me, I said, Ma'am, I've seen a man ape. And she was like, get upstairs and get your uniform off now before your dad comes home. And I was crying. I was like, Mum. And yet she doesn't even remember the conversation.
Yeah.
You know?
Because I suppose when you're younger, you see a lot of children anyway. I know you were older, but you hear a lot of unusual things from young people, don't you, and from children that you might just dismiss and don't realise what's behind them.
Yeah, I think it was that, and I think I was known for being a bit dramatic. She's in her head. She thought she's just seen an homeless man, and she's just over it. But my mum's way of dealing with things is not to mollycoddle you. Do you get what I mean? So she'll be just like, right, put it in a box, put it away, and like, let's get on to the next thing. So I think it was that. She had other kids. She had 3 jobs, and my dad and his jobs, and I think to us, it's this massive thing, and she just doesn't remember it. I mean, she mentioned we were talking about it years later, but the actual event when I ran home, she remembered who I was with. And all of that, but she just doesn't remember that actual conversation. But to me, I can remember every detail of like running and just lying on my bed and crying and thinking, what was it? What was that? Did that just happen? Did that just really happen? But I was older, so you have that thought process, don't you?
Yes.
I know, it's a bloody strange world we live in, it really is. But I know it'll resonate with the other people out there because they listen, the people who've had those experiences will be listening to this interview and they'll say, that's exactly the same for me. I mean, I know lads that have been 14, 15, 16 and they've run home and run in and said, like, told the dad, and the dad's gone, oh, it's just the moonlight, or it's just the way it's an optical illusion, it's nothing. And this lad said, I could hear it breathing. It shadowed me home, kind of thing. So it's not just girls, it happens to boys as well. And then for the last, 20 years, we've not really had anything in the UK, other than if you saw like a UFO or say you saw a typical ghost or something like that. There wasn't anything else out there, was there, if you saw something like what me and you saw?
I know, I mean, it's not as if I could have heard about people seeing those kind of things and thought that I'd seen it.
Exactly.
Because I've never heard of anything like it in my life.
Exactly, that's it. There's no history in the UK it's not like America and Canada. Nobody talks about seeing an ape-like thing, or some call it a bear man, an ape man, a gorilla man, whatever name they put on it. We don't have anything in the UK that you can mistake that for.
And what I've seen in broad daylight, you know.
Yeah, same.
Quite close up, really. I mean, I was right beneath the tree that he was in. It wasn't from a distance. I was very close. The only distance between us was that he was higher up than what I was.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was on the ground, so that was the only distance, you know.
Just a meeting of worlds. It's just like your world and his world kind of collided at that point.
Yeah, definitely.
That's how I look at it, mine now. I just think, that's it really, just collided. He was probably doing his thing. I've stumbled in being a kid, not realised, and whammo. Yeah, we're both seeing each other and poof. Yeah, I said the same as you though. I realised you said, I don't think what I saw was much older than me. It wasn't old, like an old man thing. Yeah, I've always said that. I would say, if he was a human, I'd say probably like 19, 20. You know, like when a boy's got a bit of bum fluff on the chin. He had leathery skin, but he wasn't old. I don't think he was much older than me.
Well, that's definitely my memory isn't of an older person either. My memory, like when I was trying to process, like what the familiar things that I could compare him with. One of the things was a young man. It wasn't like a you know, your dad who was older. It was a young man. It was like you know, the grown up lads on the estate kind of age. It was, if it was a person, you know. Yeah,
that's exactly what I felt like. The older boys.
Yeah, definitely. It wasn't an old creature. Whatever he was, he definitely wasn't old. He was definitely a young ape man. Definitely.
Yeah. Wow, there's just so many of us, Karen. It's unbelievable. I'm thinking now about everybody that I've spoken to that's had the similar thing where they say, it wasn't old. And there is even reports where there's been an older one and a younger one.
Really? I've never heard that.
Sherwood Forest springs to mind instantly.
Right.
5:30 at night, a lady driving home from work, she said they stood at the side of the road. They looked like cavemen. They were completely hair covered. One was about 7 foot tall. The other was about 5-6 foot tall. The older one was clearly older. She described it as maybe father and son.
Right,
Then jumped to Scotland. Guy driving home. New Year's Eve, he's not had a drink. He's driving and he said a deer came running across the road in front of the car. And he looked to see if there was another deer going to come out, and stood at the side of the road was what he described as like a caveman, wild man he called it, but there were two of them, and one of them was distinctly older, and that set off after the deer, but the younger one just stepped back into the greenery so it couldn't be seen. So there are reports of upright hairy things that are not like really old, you know, are like what we class as a young man kind of thing. I mean, I don't have an answer for that, Karen, and you don't, do you? We don't have an answer for what they are. We've just seen something that I would say hundreds of us, and that's not an exaggeration, hundreds of us in the UK have seen, and I've not found a country yet that doesn't have them in. Yesterday I was taking reports from Finland. you know.
For a similar kind of thing to what we've seen.
Yeah,
Really?
like a caveman, 8-man, hairy thing all across Russia. I've got reports in Finland, Denmark, Poland. It's unbelievable. Some of them are like, oh, I saw it when I was 74, 84, 94, something like that. And some of them have been in the last 5 or 10 years. This ape-like, some people will say caveman, others will say hominid, but mostly it's this ape man or Neanderthal that comes up. I saw 2 Neanderthal. Because you don't know, like you said at the very beginning, you're flicking through things in your mind, trying to, is it a caveman? Is it a chimp? Is it a gorilla? And that's going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. You're trying to process to explain it, and there's nothing there. So so you go to what you know. So for me, it looked like a man and an ape that had been pushed together. So he's the ape man. For some, will say he was it was a Neanderthal. It looked like what was the other one? A troglodyte. I've heard it. I saw like Cro-Magnon, the early man kind of thing. So maybe we're all seeing the same thing, but just using our own words for it, or maybe
using our own kind of thing, familiar thing to
I believe
relate it to.
Yeah, I do. Some will say it's rare. People think it's very. No one ever says to me, "I've seen a Bigfoot," or I've seen a Sasquatch. It's just that's the label that they fall under. But I don't think that all of us do see that, But that unfortunately, that's just how it is.
If it was people's imaginations running away with them, that is what they would say they'd seen.
Yeah.
Because they would be, relating it to things that you would have heard about in other countries.
Yeah, and you can hear the confusion in the voices or even in the writing, you can pick it up. Where as they're writing to you, they're trying to explain it away. I know it could have been this and it could have been this and it could have, but it wasn't. And this is why it wasn't. And you can see, I recognise it. It's like the same thought process, isn't it? People are going to think that it was this, it was that, it was A, B, C, D, or D. And it's not. It's none of those things, But I say 1,000,000 times, just because we've seen something, we don't have the answer to what it is, where it comes from, how it lives, you just see it. That's all you get, is that view of it,
And because we were so young, it's you're only getting part of what happened as well.
Yeah.
Really, which is why I would really like to kind of try and get.
I'll find a way.
Hypnotised somehow.
I will find a way to get us hypnotised. Deb Singleton's doing an hypnotherapy course, and she's lovely, Deb. She's an experienced herself, and so she's trying. She's lovely. So I said to her, I put my hand up as a volunteer, So I'll just let her know that you're interested in it. And
I definitely would be. I've looked around. I've done a bit of research, but I haven't felt that I've found the right person to ask to kind of to do that.
I'm saying you've got to trust someone, haven't you? I think because I would be the same. So you will just when she gets further on in a course, I'll just get you two chatting so you can have a natter. Feel.
Yeah, that would be great. Do you know of anyone else who has actually done that?
No.
Who's actually been hypnotised?
No, no one that I know as of yet has done that. So no, unfortunately.
I've got a few things left on my list that I need to do to kind of, and that's as much as I can do to kind of, and one of them is to get hypnotised. The other one is to return to the place, which I would have done by now, actually. It's not that far away from us. It's probably about 25 miles, but unfortunately I only drive locally. I'm too scared to go too far on, the roads and stuff. I just stick local.
I get you.
But, that's another thing I need to do. And the third thing is to finish me painting. And I think once I've done those things, that's as much as I can
You
do.
do? Yeah, it
For my
is.
own story to kind of get more information, you know.
Oh, I'm dying to see this picture, you know. I've not seen it. I'm dying to see
Well,
the painting.
I don't mind sending you it, but it is unfinished, and
No,
I'm not happy.
I know you don't want to put it out there until it's finished, till you're happy with it. I know that.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of.
Yeah,
I did send it to Carl, actually.
Stick with it. No, you stick with that. When it's the time's right, I'll see it. I'm all right with that.
I am going to finish it soon. I'm going to do that, and yeah, and I do think it'll bring back some more memories, because I could feel myself going back to that place, and like just in the perspective and everything, and
yeah, that's
coming
it.
back, and when I seen Carl's photograph, to me it really did. It did look similar to what my painting was.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And the feeling I had when I seen his photograph.
Yeah.
Which is very encouraging, because I think if that's how I feel, seeing the photograph, what's it going to be like when I go there?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's triggering something in my mind. I think it would evoke something. I think it would bring back some memories.
Yeah, I think because even the smell of the area, there's something will trigger something when you're there. Help me. In my head, I thought it was about 10.5 foot tall. I had it that big in my head. But when I went back and because everything's still there the same, I thought, it was only about 7 foot, 7 foot-ish. Yeah, it wasn't this big, huge thing. And I think I just made him bigger in my mind because I was so frightened of him. And it helped me.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, and just certain things like, I don't really know how to describe it. It was just, it took me 33 years to do it. But when I went back, I wasn't as frightened as I thought I'd be. And that helped. That really helped. And I don't know, it just kind of put it a bit into perspective for me that that thing again, it really did happen. I really was in that bush. Yeah, all of that. And just took a little photograph of the area for myself, you know. I wanted a photo on my phone of that, and every now and again I'll have a look at it and I think, how did that happen? You know?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's how we deal with it, innit? That's just how me and, you know, we all have our own way of dealing with that event kind of thing.
Yeah. I just feel really lucky, to be honest, that I've had the opportunity to bring that memory forward and kind of explore it.
Yeah.
And you know, something that could have been lost. If that trigger that day when I was watching the TV didn't bring it back to me mind, I probably hadn't thought about it for 10 years.
I get what you mean.
I remember telling someone else about it 10 years previously. Before that, if that hadn't have happened, then that would have just been lost. And even though it's a really scary thing, it's an amazing thing as well, you know.
Yeah, it is. It's your truth.
You want to know more about it,
about
what it actually was.
Yeah, and it's your story. It happened to you, you know. And now you're ready to talk about it and share it. And this is what happened. I have no explanation for you, but this is what happened to me. That's how I feel. You know?
I think it does become part of you. And, you know, on my reflections of how I've been throughout my life and that, I think that has become part of who I am.
Yeah, I do. I honestly believe that. And I think once you voice it, it's just like, that's what happened to me. I mean, I've spoke to a woman who's 85 who remembers picking like wild foods as a kid. She said she would have been about 7 or 8, and she saw what she described as a gorilla man come walking thing. But she never could work out is she'd never heard the word gorilla before. But she said it was a gorilla man. It came walking out, and there was other kids with her at the time, and they were in the fields. And she was 85 when I spoke to her.
Really?
And so she would have been talking about the war years, World War II.
Yeah.
When they were evacuated, And she thought it was something that lived in that area because she was from London, so she just presumed it was a country thing. You know?
Yeah,
But it made sense, you know, when I thought back, I thought that makes complete sense. If you've grown up in a street, in a, you know, 2 up, 2 down, you've no idea of the country and suddenly you just get shipped off there. She just, you know, I mean, they all ran away, don't get me wrong, they were frightened. But they just presumed it was something that was quite normal in the area, and it was like probably 50, 60 years later when she started talking about it because she couldn't work out what it was and what she'd seen. And they're not the only, there were other reports during the war. There was one in Tunbridge Wells of like an ape-like creature that approached a man and a woman on a golf course. So, you know.
There's been so many sightings, hasn't there?
Yeah, there has. I can't even think what the earliest one is. I think it, like modern earliest one, probably about 1921. And then it just follows through the years, and, you know, it's unbelievable. And there's areas like yours that have lots and lots of reports. But then there are other areas that just have one. You know?
Yeah.
So I know that I'm never going to solve the problem, the puzzle of it all. But I'm okay with that. I'm all right. I set out to prove to other people that I saw what I saw. And I think I've done that, you know. So anything else I do is a win-win, really. You know?
Definitely, yeah.
But I'm like you. One day I think, right, I've done enough. You know, it's time for me to back off and let other people do it.
But it's just so important to get your story out there as well. I mean, because you've done such a big piece of work, it's always going to be there. You know, when we're not there, that piece of work and those stories will be there.
Yeah, that.
And, you know.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Who knows what other people will see in the future? You know, and they'll be able to go back and say this happened all those years ago as well.
Yeah, true. I never thought about it like that. I get what you mean.
Like,
yeah.
It's going to be there as validation for those people in years to come that are going to have these experiences.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure they will.
No. So at this point, I brought the interview to a close, and me and Karen had a private chat offline, and I did thank her for coming forward. And not just for coming forward, but for coming forward and going on tape, because I know how hard it can be for the witnesses in the UK to do that. And I think she's incredibly erudite and explained what happened to her very well. And I hope as the years go by that will happen for more and more of us. So thank you very much for joining me, and thank you to Karen for sharing her stories with us. And I'll be back next week as normal.